So I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the AC Building Committee meeting on Friday, June 16th. Start time is 9:17. I ask that we stand, face the flag, say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Item 2, we're going to open up committee discussion among the committee on the construction management company. If needed, we can make a vote, or we can just submit off the scoring sheet. Are we open up for discussion on this? Or you? Okay.
Why don't you start?
We have the 3. I had Bismarck on the bottom. I held Gilbane and Downs as 1 and 2 with Gilbane on top. The only reason being is Gilbane's been part of the town projects, the 3 or 4 schools now. Some Riverfield, I was involved with them at Holland Hill as the building committee and at Mill Hill. Just speaking on experience, they follow up. Their change orders are relatively low. They are the ultimate professionals. That's me working with them. They were on the tight deadline at Mill Hill, and despite the panic 2 weeks before school started, they got that school open, ready to go. Everything delivered. Every timeline that I've had with them has been met. Any problems I had with them has been dealt with directly and quickly. So that's key too, especially in this kind of scope of a project where they're not really going to be on site. So I have, from experience point of view, I would give Gilbane the upper hand. And knowing especially what they dealt with during COVID, and even crucial, we only waited on one piece of material longer than expected, if I'm not mistaken. And that was the refrigerator to the kitchen. Everything else was ordered promptly. They stayed on top of it. We always got updates, things like that, which I think would be very important with this project.
I've had experience with all 3 companies. All 3 are very qualified and quality companies. As with Jason, I had Bismarck on the bottom, and then I had Gilbane and Downs tied. I'm leaning toward Downs just because of cost. It's going to be hard to justify the $300,000 to $400,000 increase in cost to the town. I do agree that Gilbane has experience with Fairfield school systems where the other 2 do not. But we can certainly discuss the cost issue, but it's going to be hard to justify that with the town, in my opinion.
Okay. And we're just going, obviously, on the presentations they did. So I'm assuming everything's an estimate. I would agree at that time also that the cost is going to be hard to justify.
Have they been compared apples to apples, like schedule to schedule and staffing? Has that been analyzed?
I believe,
because we haven't. I mean, I haven't. I know where you probably I haven't seen it because I know this specific project's kind of a unique animal.
Well, here's the other thing that's.
Well, that's another thing too. Really, all 3 do not have. According to their program, do not have experience with HVAC rent work. It wasn't shown in their work or their qualifications. Now, I'm sure as GCs, they've all had experience.
Yeah, they can all. I don't know but I know Downs and Gilbane can manage these.
I have no doubt that all 3 can manage it.
Yeah,
but they didn't show it in their. I mean, for a layman, you look at it and go, "What the hell?" But anyway,
I mean, if they've done renovation work like we've done at Mill Hill, Holland Hill, Riverfield, to me that qualifies for this easily.
They didn't show.
The thing that you have to think about is exactly what Chuck said, has the schedule been compared apples to apples. But the schedule itself is still a question mark.
Yes.
So we published something that they marked, they went against, and one company might have more strength on that type of schedule than another. We might be on I'll call it a normal or natural schedule that we normally would do, which is basically, Jesse even said it in his interviews, was this is really a 2-summer job, naturally. If we're forcing it to meet that December deadline, that's where we're getting into this odd second shift, not normal for us, buying the schedule type of thing. So one company might look at it different than another. As I said last week, the superintendent has written to the commissioner asking for an extension. I would wait for Jesse's update, but on design and everything, but I still think it's a 2-summer schedule. I don't know that we necessarily want to disrupt schools for a grant. It just doesn't make sense. Getting money, but it disrupts the educational process. So,
and
I don't know how much weight you want to give them.
I agree, but all 3 firms bid on the same schedule.
Understood. I'm just saying how much weight you want to give to that factor.
Well,
if we're going to go in front of the board and say that we chose this contractor over that contractor, and this contractor is $300,000 more, we're really going to have to justify that, or whatever the number was.
Just to get David caught up, just came in. We opened up for discussion on the 3 construction companies. Either we can vote on picking one or go off the scoring sheet. So we're just open discussing other things. We both had Bismarck on the bottom, followed with Downs and Gilbane. I have Gilbane slightly a little ahead due to their experience in the past 4 projects. Rodney has them tied, just because Gilbane is over Downs for the same presentation between $300,000 and $500,000. Did you get a chance to?
I haven't officially scored them.
Okay. Do you have any opinion on the 3, or?
Maybe you guys have more experience directly with some of the firms being on the building committees. From my perspective, previously on the board, I was leaning towards Gilbane. They were coming out on top as I was going through. I'm very concerned about the timelines of whether or not we're going to get any sort of a true extension, unless there's an update that I made.
I'll give an update after this that we can discuss more.
So known entities and making timelines.
Do we want to go back to this after a quick update and then just go back so we can go to number 3 update on the project, and then go back when I give some information with my discussion with the state rep, Jennifer Leeper, over the phone.
All right. I'll make a motion to move item 2 on the agenda below item 3, which is update on project.
All right. Do I have a second? David? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. So we'll go to item number 3. So I reached out to State Rep Leeper. I told her where we are in the project, how we hired or unofficially they're hired as the owner's rep. And I brought up my concern that when we move forward, what we're hearing is delays in the inventory chain. She asked how long. I hear anywhere between 8 months to a year, if not longer, on certain things, and we don't know. She has told me this. Obviously, she wants to be kept abreast on what's going on. She said, the minute we know, we know what the delays are. We need to let her know so she can go back to the state and whoever she needs to talk to. So I also brought up this factor. I said, look, there is a shot the state can say you don't have the extension, which puts us in limbo, which means that we have to go in front of the boards and ask for money, which we can't do, right? It's going to be too late. She goes, I said, do I stop the project? Do I wait? What's the step? I said, I'd rather wait to say we're getting the money than go with daddy's credit card, buy everything, and then come back and say, oops. So if we can order stuff, she feels because they're not in session until they start session, the state kind of has a lull. They're not overbooked with everybody. If we can figure out some kind of guideline with that as far as ordering and send her the paperwork and proof, it should be no issue.
But we have to get the bid to do that, though. We have to design and go out to bid.
Right. And the only other thing is, do we bid for 2 schedules?
Well,
Like a press schedule and
no.
a natural schedule?
Well, I think we're a
also
little bit premature with it because, I mean, I know for a fact switchgear and transformers are a year out. I can guarantee you that. We ordered one last February. We just finally getting the transfer switch like this week. Like 15 months later, we got the rest of it, and it came in late. Regular HVAC equipment, my understanding from our commissioning group is that they're starting to get back on track. I don't know if it was, I don't know, Jesse, what you're hearing,
What's considered on track?
Well,
What is
my understanding
6
is,
months?
call it 3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months?
Yeah, I think if we were to bid it, say, late fall, my understanding is like the HVAC equipment, and you know Blair Richardson, he's our director of commission, he's like, that equipment, we could probably get for the summer. If we bid it, November, December timeframe, release and awarded January, and given, the amount of months, I think it'd be still a concern, because we're ready, to get it all up and ready and so forth. Sheet metal goods are probably fine, but it's the electrical switchgear is probably the biggest concern for that, and until you have that, so.
Yeah, and that's our biggest concern too. It has been since we started looking for this project, because it's typically a year out for switchgear, and at least 2 of the 3 schools will probably be new switchgear and electric services. The third one is might go either way, so we might need new services.
Can they use the existing switchgear until we get it in and switch it out?
The problem is all the new air conditioning has to go on the new service because it won't fit on the existing one.
Okay, so
you can't have the equipment up and running.
That's fine.
And that, from talking to Sal, that was my understanding was the grant was the HVAC has to be up and running. So you can't wait.
Well, it has to be accepted by the board. The board's not going to accept it. Just the file. And I had the same discussion via email with Jen Rayford, and she even shared, part of her dialogue with the governor's assistant, advisor. And, it was, I don't want to use the wrong word. It was just like, keep OSCG and R abreast of it. We'll let them know about your problems and this and that. And, if you really run into a problem, they'll consider giving you an extension. And just like you said, it's like, that doesn't inspire confidence the way that the sentence was written. So what if they come back and say no, and we bid it the wrong way? We bid it for a summer job. And they're going, no.
Well, if you bid it for 2 summer, you're essentially admitting from the beginning that you're not making the timeline, so they'll make the argument you didn't attempt to make the timeline.
Exactly.
So you basically can't do that.
Either they're our partners, or they're, are you our partners in this? I understand you want to get the money.
You can also get an alternate bid. You can put it out for the schedule, because until we actually have it from the manufacturer that this is going to be late, the state's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
They're not going to do right. They think they'll agree on that. But we could put it out with the schedule the way it is for next year and try to complete for 24, then and get an alternative schedule. Hey, we can put all the ductwork in. We can, I don't know what the plans are yet, so I haven't seen if we can put the units up, get everything in place, and wire it back to a panel where it's, hey, just putting in the switchgear and then doing a switch over.
That's the question. How long does that take?
Like if you did all the rest of the stuff, like I don't know
else.
the magnitude, Jesse, on these, so you just haven't seen plans like. Could we do all the HVAC work in one summer if we had all the materials in?
Come all the way back, and then you just need to do
Just do the home run at the end, or there might be some residual. Key thing is the HVAC, because I think that's a bulk of the work, if I understand, just kind of high level, the scope.
Well, I'm looking at how disruptive is just that piece. Is that piece?
The electrical and everything behind it.
It's running all new conduit to the units and back to the panel.
Which I would do the first summer.
But you do every single thing except for the switches that you're waiting on.
In a very simplified manner, yes. That's a very simplified way to put it.
So the question there would be, if you did all of that on summer 1,
yeah,
do you really need summer 2 for that?
But they'll do it over Christmas break or something.
Exactly. And then I was going to use Christmas break as the example because that's the longer of the breaks. Could you?
I mean, I'm sure you would need to can structure the contract to say we can put it in the bid package form that, hey, we acknowledge that certain pieces of equipment are going to be, if they are, then we'll have to handle it at that time, but incorporate it into your bid that you're going to install whenever it comes, right?
Because if the HVAC and all the other components are actually on a more reasonable timeline at this point, let's say, and we still do this accelerated, we should be fine for the first summer. All the other components should be attainable.
There might be one or two other components.
Let's back up.
I'm just trying to move it in.
That's fine. What we're discussing is all fine and good, but where are we with the design set?
Well, the design, we're technically in schematic design right now.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we've gone ahead with design development, we're kind of doing both at the same time to kind of get it done quicker. But we're still, what we coordinated before is that we think we'll be completed with design into September, and I think that's still a good estimate.
So that's September. That's before we can go out to bid.
Yep.
So putting a bid package together, that's 2 or 3 weeks. Sending it out, you have to allow a month.
Yeah.
So now then award contracts, so you're at the end of January. I mean,
yeah, so if we're you're saying September, end of September? Yeah.
Yes.
So we have to go to, the one thing in between there is we have to go to the state of Connecticut, get permission to bid before we do.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a couple weeks,
No, you're right.
This committee to approve it, Board of Ed will, they'll approve it. But those do take a couple weeks. We get in with the state, they review it. We know it takes another week before we get the actual letter before that CM can actually physically advertise. So that's like a month there. Realistically.
Okay, well, that
so
that
October,
still fits in. So
and then you're probably into December before we actually get the bids and get a GMP. Then we have to go through, obviously, do we have to go back to, do we have to go back through Board of Reps when the bid's in to get approval on that?
This is unique because the money should be there, so we actually don't have to report back
They
to.
already approved.
They approved everything. I don't think we have to go back in front of anyone, including.
I think as a courtesy, we have to.
It's not a courtesy. You're spending bonding money more than $10,000.
Yeah.
It's when you get to, Gilbane's going to want to bid everything so that they can develop their GMP. It's their GMP that you're going to have approved.
Yes.
By the Board of Selectmen.
Which is why we have.
Is it just Board of Selectmen, right? Just, we don't have to go.
No, it's all three
All
boards.
three.
So that takes a good solid month.
So now we're into February, the end of
No,
February.
it's not all 3 boards for the contract.
No, not for contract. I think it's Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen, not for contract.
Right.
The money's been has already been appropriated,
Okay.
which we have across the 3 jobs, the 3 AP ad jobs, $21, $22 million.
Assuming we stay perfectly within that.
Right, and this is assuming that we don't have a budget on it.
Yeah.
All right,
That's a
so
separate.
we're at the beginning of February, before we can go out to bid on this.
So our deadline is when?
Before we can award, before we can award.
The deadline for,
But that's good, end of February, I think that's for awards.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
Award.
So we can release and get procurement.
but this deadline is
Well, before-
December 2024, correct? So we won't be able to get out to bid and everything, boots running, until March, with the deadline of December.
No. Out to bid in February,
You're out to bid in February.
No, you're out to bid further, no, you're further back on that, but you're not putting your orders in on the stuff until
Bid is,
February.
bid and award are two different things, right? Do I get this right, John?
Yeah, but also, and we can look at, the letter that we got for the grants. They don't want a piece of our money. So we saved that.
Okay.
Because they were so long in putting out the grants.
Oh, so we'd have to go through PCR and get permission to bid, just go out and.
Yeah.
So
you're 6.
Oh, so we're saving a month. So we're back
time,
on Rodney's timeframe.
You still don't know your numbers until end of the year.
End of December.
You got 12 months to do a job.
Now it's just the award, it's a matter of the town process.
You got 7 weeks, 8 weeks in the summer.
To finish, to do the job.
Yeah.
If we're stuck with the December 24th deadline from the state.
So,
right.
So we have construction over the summer from June until
August.
At the end of August.
Correct.
And procurement, we just said would take, for the equipment, would take 3 or 4 months. Switchgear up to a year.
Yeah.
So there's something, we're right up against the wall.
Oh, yeah, you're right up in June of, if you release February 1, say we sign contract.
If there's any procurement issues, if you specify a unit, they can't be, and I'm not saying you're going to, but I've seen it done. I've had it happen to me, my own staff, but, you're kind of SOL.
Yeah, it's tight. I mean, unless we can pull design schedule, but, I think that schedule seems reasonable. Unless we can pull back.
That's what I said in the last meeting.
We're right there.
We laid it out, and.
But the main issue remains the supply chain, right? It's not saying this job can't get done.
Correct.
It's the supply chain that'll be the biggest challenge.
The other option, and this, I don't know how far the plans are along.
Early release.
Or owner furnished switchgear, go out to bid this summer with just switchgear, and everything else goes.
That's the lead time is the switchgear, then why can't we go out?
If we're fairly confident or oversize it, I mean, I'm sure the schools will put more stuff on there eventually.
Do the switchgear component, just accelerate that now, because in reality, even a little bit oversized, which will never hurt you in the long run.
Right.
We basically have a pretty good sense of what that would be, that could be put out. That would make sense, because that puts you on your 12 month timeline. Even at the tail end of it, you're still, and you're within.
Even if it's October or something, I mean, it might be a long.
Again, we're talking
Christmas
or something. Even Christmas. Again,
even
if it's not Christmas break, you're still basically
plenty of
deadline by the day.
Yeah, a lot.
I mean, you can do that. The big fear is that you have to go back to work.
Which we kind of don't want to.
Exactly.
Which we don't want to. Another thing is, at the end of the day, still, it's about the kids and no disruption to anything in those classrooms. Like, they shouldn't come in walking with dust on their desk or missing sealed tiles waiting for the whole year.
The above ceiling work will take place during the summer. I mean, bringing the switchgear in is, you could do it on winter break or whatever. And, it's a matter of 3 or 4 days to put it in place.
Which we learned. And we learned on other projects, it's actually better to let the AC HVAC run in the winter, so make sure everything's up and running compared to the other project where we did it during the summer and everything just went weird. So, all right, so that brings us back then to item 2, the management company, the construction management company. If we still think we can go on that tight kind of deadline, and again, just my experience with Gilbane, I know they've done it in the past with no issues, and I think they're prepared, and I think they know the scope of what's the expectations of the town, the committee, and everything else as far as that. But Rodney, you worked with all 3. You may have a different look at Downs in this case. I think we've narrowed it down to Downs and Gilbane.
As I said earlier, I've worked with all 3. I've had experience with all 3. I've worked with specifically with two. I think they're all qualified. Gilbane has some advantage with knowing Fairfield school system, but we need to justify the $300,000 to $500,000 additional cost. I'm happy with either one of them, but I still have an issue with the $300,000 to $500,000 or $100,000 difference in cost. The schedules seem to be about the same. Gilbane runs a little longer into 2025 than Downs is projected, but Downs is both schedules are subjective.
How are the pre-construction numbers comparing? I actually didn't look at the.
Yeah, we do like a side-by-side, because I know when we're younger, we do a side-by-side analysis, like pre-con, general conditions per month.
Unfortunately, I didn't write them down, but I got them right here. We can do it quickly.
Pre-construction, correct me if I'm wrong, looks like Gilbane is less than Downs. Here's my other question. Not choosing a CM today, does that affect the timeline we just discussed?
No.
Yes. So we need them on the Board of Selectmen for Monday with the other one.
But when's schematic design going to be done, and when do we need them to do the first estimate? That's always the critical time frame for it, but
also keep in mind that we don't know Board of Selectmen's schedule once
summer
hits, yeah.
They could choose to have a meeting, not choose to cancel a meeting, so.
We could request a special meeting if need be.
Yeah.
And there'll be one item for the one item.
So I'm just looking at the schedule from Downs.
Their creation is asking, not their stepchild.
Because we also have the option, if we're confident enough to vote on a short list on the construction company and then bring both companies in for a quick presentation. We can do that also. We do have that option.
That's justifiable.
Right? If we're comfortable enough to vote to short list the two construction companies down to Downs and Gilbane.
Do we know what GCs provide? Because typically what we'll do is look, what are the general conditions per month? Should we look at it as a factor? It's not the end all be all. Like, do we know side by side what they are per month on the general conditions?
No.
Throughout the project, I would suggest we take a look at that. Take a look at their schedules if we could do that, because we haven't had a chance to look. We'd love to look at it with you guys and do what we've done and historically on these to just kind of compare and look at the staffing too, because the staffing is going to be really important with this as well. We've seen instances where the original GCs come in really low, and then the conditions change, and then there's some ad services that come in, and we're like, wait a minute here. And then we're back where we were today, talking the number because of the way the staffing and what our expectations are.
If there's any objection from the committee, I would say we could shortlist the two companies, another week to discuss, and if needed, invite the two companies in for a presentation so we can also ask all the questions. We don't have to do that, or we can shortlist it. Apparently there's some more open discussion to justify. If we really want to justify costs and everything, and again, if you go apples to apples right now, it would be Downs because of the money, right? Because these are apples to apples is how you have to look at it.
Is it apples to apples?
That's the question. That's not.
The schedules look different in their proposals.
Yes, they do.
Gilbane's out to like mid-25,
right.
And Downs per what you guys asked for. They're giving you what you asked for, yeah. But we ask these folks like, what's a realistic schedule? And that's.
So I think the question is they've got that in their initial proposal, but when we actually get to work on it, what their approach is and which one's going to actually, what we all jointly talk about if it's going to actually meet the deadline. Right, like they're looking at it and putting out 25, but Gilbane very well may actually, when we bring up all the factors we had here, be better suited to actually get it done on the 24 timeline.
And if they're,
it's just a.
Gilbane's 4 months extended in their schedule, and their GCs are based on 4 months additional.
That's what you look at the cost per month, and then you have to look at also, hey, if there's a lag between, like, hey, when you do all the base work, the HVAC, and there's nobody on site, we don't want to be paying for GCs, frankly, October, November, December, when we're doing nothing. I think we'd want to confirm that as well. But at the same time, if they're extended, we got to compare these apples to apples, whether it's December 24 or 25, to be able to say to the Board of Selectmen, hey, we've compared them apples to apples, and hey, cost per month is this. The other thing we also kind of look back into too is we do kind of a reverse calculation where we go, and it's just an indicator who can give us the most trade, because your GMP is basically of the trade costs, as we know. Then everything else is built at the bottom, all the GCs and percents. Okay, and we back in who can give us the most trade costs. So that's where you want to go. How much can we get in the building?
But that's at the GMP. We're nowhere near that.
But do we have a budget for the project? For the construction?
We have the conceptual estimate from BTC.
Yeah, so, I mean, just using that, assuming that to be the budget, great. Like you said, it's GMP, but we do in all our jobs where we go, here's your control budget, we'll assume that estimate, and we kind of reverse calculate the GMP. Again, it's a factor, right? And go, okay, how much trade costs? Because trade costs is work in the building. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Right? So, because insurances come into play, hourly rates come into play, duration comes into play, fee. Sometimes we look at fee. Fees that throws a lot of people off. Someone can come at 1.5, someone can come at 1.85. How much work can you give me at the end of the day? Because there's all these factors kind of come into the, the bottom line is the bottom line. Here's the control budget. How we work back up into this, and it's just another factor. It's not to say, hey, it's going to work that way, but it
No, I agree. Like
but theoretically, both firms should, with your analysis, you're doing it for both firms.
Yeah.
And you're basing it on a schedule. I mean, one firm that has the shorter period of schedule may have more workforce on site.
Sure. Yeah.
Than the other firm that has,
duration. You can agree, and assuming we all agree that you can do it in that time frame. But I mean,
we have to.
Thing. But staffing is still staffing, right? Like the only difference here is going to be maybe as an assistant superintendent, and it is that they do second shift or not too, right? The trade work's most of the bulk. I mean, the management's the management. It's not. I don't think it's going to vary that much, and it shouldn't vary a whole lot. I wouldn't think.
Couple percent.
Yeah, we'll be a scheduler here, an estimator here. But again, looking at that staffing, I would think again. That's why I'm interested. What are the general conditions for a month?
So it sounds like, unless there's any objection, we should bring those two companies in.
Yeah, and if you wouldn't mind sharing us with the numbers so we can do an analysis and go side by side, because I know looking at the form, that's our form, that's our whole form, and we just kind of put them side by side and we kind of compare the two, and it's not black and white, it's very subjective, but at least we can give you help justifying that.
Let's also, I want to go back to something Rodney said. I want to make sure everyone is aware. Our mentality has to be, this project is going to end by the deadline of December 24, due to the fact that we're tied into state money and approval. So there can't be, we can move it back. We can't move it back. It's set. Until the state says you can move it back, it's a set date. So everything has to be up and running by that day. So no matter what we have to do to get the parts, the product and stuff, has to be up and operational, and ownership has to be given back to the town by December 24th.
Add to that some of the things that we discussed today make that a possibility.
Makes it a possibility, but not a guarantee. That's
not a guarantee,
but never guarantee anything. Right. So with respect to these, again, I'm just looking at the quals, and I think again, Downs, they put in their schedule for, finishing right there December 24. That was in the RFP. A lot of times we see in other districts, even for us, give us a realistic schedule. We just did it in Stanford. They're saying, hey, that big high school, they're saying 42 months all in. We gave them a realistic schedule. We said, listen, we talked to a bunch of folks, and we think the build is 42 to 48 for the building and another year for the demo. Realistic. We gave them a proposal based on what they asked. So kind of going back to this, okay, Downs, do you think the schedule is realistic? If not, give us a realistic schedule. Gilbane, it looks like Gilbane said, hey, listen, this is what we think it is, and compare them side by side. I think that's the fair. That'd be a fair way to do it, to go, give us a realistic. We know you gave us what we asked for. Give us a realistic, so at least we're comparing apples to apples, and we're sticking to the 24, but at least we kind of know it up front, because otherwise, are we really apples to apples?
What I would like to know, and none of the three firms did this, is how can we get procurement solved, like we were discussing here?
Yeah.
Mark,
early bid packages, how would we go about resolving long lead items? And
let's come in with some innovative procedures.
Yep.
They gave us vanilla.
So let's
we go in an interview, we can say, hey, here's a couple of points we want you to address and how you would go about it.
I would suggest doing it that way.
Yeah.
So let's do we want to keep all three on the table, or are we as a committee comfortable?
No, I'm
comfortable with Downs and Gilbane.
I'm comfortable with Downs and Gilbane. Absolutely.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we're going to have a vote to shortlist the construction management company to Gilbane and Downs, followed with in-person meetings with Gilbane and Downs, either at a special meeting or at the next building committee meeting. Are we okay with that?
When is the board of selectmen?
So Board of Selectmen is tomorrow, which I can go into.
Next week, right? Monday or Tuesday?
No, Monday.
Yeah.
It's for Colliers, but then I wasn't sure if we were gonna have to put them on it. We can delay that, obviously, and then bring them up to the next.
You were even if you solved that, you weren't getting it.
Because the agenda's been released already.
Well, not the agenda's been released. They're approving the contract. They're not validating your selection. They're approving
validating the contract. Right.
Which they can do. They can do one of the items. They're not going to be able to do this.
Right.
The question there is, do we know the next, barring a cancellation, have they talked at all about their next meeting after that? Because we're going to hopefully be on that.
If not,
I don't know.
If not, we can request a special meeting.
No, just to answer this point, we're hitting that summer.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Board of Selectmen typically continues meeting. It's Board of Finance
which we don't have to go in front of.
Takes a sabbatical.
Okay.
So
that puts us at next
July.
Town
it'll be the
calendar.
first meeting of July.
First meeting in July.
Or the last meeting in June.
Yeah, I'm just looking for July.
By July 3rd.
Well, which will be pushed back.
What? It'd probably be July 3rd.
But that'll be pushed forward.
Board of Selectmen, July 10th.
July 10th.
So on July 10th, is that?
We should be fine.
It gives you a couple of weeks to.
A couple of weeks to really dig in and make sure. And then
You're going to make your selection, and in the back, then after the selection is done, in the background, there's the back and forth between Gilbane,
and these guys and everybody else.
Colliers and the town attorney, formalize the contract. That's what goes to the board of selectmen.
So
So there's going to be a little bit of timeline there too.
Yeah. So you got.
We were never going to make Monday.
No.
And no matter what we did realistically. And we may have follow-ups.
Right. So let's make a motion then. I'll go back to the original motion that we shortlist the construction management companies to Downs and Gilbane, and then ask that those two companies come in and present to the board at the next meeting.
Next Friday.
Or a special meeting, whatever we can discuss that.
Well, yeah, should add something to that we're going to draw up a list of requests for them to come prepared to answer.
Correct. On top of their normal presentation, we're going to have a list of them given to them on things to be prepared for.
Ideally next Friday, or it's going to be.
I mean, there's long lead and not to get, but, also, temporary protections are going to be huge here.
Yeah.
Even though hopefully it's in the summer, but dust control, stuff like that, those things we get and we go.
So do I have
I'll second on that one.
first and second? All in favor? Aye. Abstentions? Nays? All right. So the next step then is guys will contact the two companies. Let them know next Friday.
Yeah, let's develop that list,
Yep.
even though you're not under contract yet.
Tell them it's going to be.
We're not hoping a prayer, but he's going to make it happen.
It's going to be.
If you can develop that list and circulate, or give it to.
Yeah, Mark and I'll review it, work it, send it to you guys, and
we'll agree on it, and then we can add to it.
We can do that.
Can we look at interview next Friday?
Next Friday,
Oh, good.
15-minute limit on each company with potential question and answers after.
Presentation.
Yep.
Q&A.
Is that enough time, I think? Yeah, because we have most of the nuts and bolts. I think we're curious.
I'd give them 30 minutes personally. 15's no time. We can burn 15 on introductions, really.
Yeah.
We don't like being in meetings anymore. We have to, but
I agree.
out of respect for the
Unfortunately,
firm.
I agree.
You agree?
They're going to drive down.
All right, 30 minutes.
Especially they were complicated in their life. That's fine.
30 minutes with 10-minute
questions.
Q&A.
Yep. And we'll have it.
Fine.
You got to double check the schedule. We'll have.
Carlos could say, this is what we want you to address. Be brief and just hit those. We don't need to get all the minutiae.
Yeah, we don't.
Safety ratings and all
Correct.
that crap.
Yeah.
Just get right into the project specifics.
All right.
And the staffing and whatnot. So.
Yep.
All right.
You'll help with some of that.
Yes, and then we'll add.
Yeah, we'll draft it and send
And then
it to
send it
you.
over so we can add. Yep.
Take a look at it.
outline some of that.
All right,
You'll
so that's
draft some
next
of
week.
that.
Next week.
Yeah, they can cut the stuff.
We don't need any fluff. We don't need any
Move.
And then how long do you need to do your reverse engineering?
It won't take long. We already have the format already there. You guys are using our format, so if you guys can release those to us to populate that, then we'll do the spreadsheet, send it back to you guys. We'll have it back to you probably Monday or Tuesday at the latest, I would think.
All right.
Doesn't take long.
Item 3 we've done. Item 4, new business. Just real quick, as a building committee, we need a recording secretary. For right now, it's been myself, and it'll be Mark. Because of the timing of our meetings, a lot of secretaries are unavailable to attend in person. I've worked out that if there's no objection from anyone here, they'll take meeting minutes from the recorded sessions. Something as important as next week, I've asked them to be here in person, and we'll make sure there's a recording secretary in person for things that need to be that kind of thing. But I think once after next week happens and things are set up, we're not going to meet as often until needed, right? So that's the first item. Another item is just the board is the committee's aware of all these building committees, they set up a trailer somewhere and all that. Angeles has said that they won't need a trailer for these 4 sites. They're going to get a room from them. For the town will offer them a room so they can be their control center. And
the CM for
the CMs and everything. Yeah.
Saves quite a bit of cost.
Yep, they'll be done.
Run it all out of
one thing because there's going to be 4
Yeah.
projects going at once. Any other new business for anyone on the committee? None? Go ahead.
Give you a couple, we did bring Jesse in so he can give you an update where he is with design. I just want to let you know, yesterday we got bids on the RTU replacement at Ward, and it came in over what we have in budget. The low bid, there were 2 bidders. The low bid came in probably about, not factoring in anything as a contingency, about $30,000 over what we have left. And I'm not necessarily, we called for scope review of both of them to make sure that they both have it. It was above the estimate that we had a professional estimate. The job was supposed to be $900,000, and we got one bid just under 1.1 and one at 1.2. So we'll figure out what's going on there. Van Zelm will do a scope review, and I'll report back to you. Just wanted to let you know that. And Jesse Bose from BL Companies, he is our engineer on the 3 school added air conditioning projects, and whatever, if you want to give them the floor to give an update on design.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, please interrupt me with questions, because that's probably more important than what I have to say. But we've, we visited all the schools, we've gone through them in a lot of detail, spent a lot of time above the ceilings, figuring out what systems will work and won't work. So our schematic design will have, probably have 2 options for each school. And it really is most likely going to come down to, assuming we're doing packaged OS units for ventilation, air, and VRF for cooling in the classrooms, it's probably going to come down to whether it's ducted VRF units in each classroom or like ceiling cassettes, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Obviously, these schools are pretty old, so there's not a ton of ceiling space. So I think those are really the 2 realistic options. You can't do it like a old school VAV system, which aren't used that much anymore anyway, but there's just not space for something like that. I did have some scope coordination, but I didn't know if that was with Sal versus all of you guys in terms of, there's a lot of rooms at these schools that have single split systems in them, like one condensing unit on the roof goes to 1 classroom. A lot of them are old. It's a maintenance nightmare because there's like 100 compressors up on the roof, and we've been assuming that those are all going to be replaced.
I believe that's the way the DTC report was done.
Okay.
That they're going to be replaced.
Yeah.
And I would,
If you have a DX unit for the library, nice big old ducted in, that's not being replaced. That is a solution if we have a one-off split unit for a classroom because there, whatever reason, there's special ed, computer lab at one time. Those are not permanent solutions.
yeah, and leaving things like that are, Pennywise pound foolish in the long haul, right? This is one of the worst things that we've done to ourselves ever, all over the town, that slowly we've been trying to weed that stuff out over the last 2 decades. Stuff that is the complete, nightmare long-term on cost. Right?
So with this project, we're reducting the entire system?
No, but this project, we're adding air conditioning to all areas that don't currently have it and replacing these single splits that are just
What's the percentage that do and don't have it? Approximately.
It's different each school. Like North Stratfield, there's only air conditioning at 4,000 square feet out of 61,000. So
what's air conditioning?
That's a lot of ductwork.
There's a handful of offices, and I think the media center. Yeah, the media center there.
So are these similar to the past projects of those schools, the Mill Hill and the Holland Hills? Have you been able to walk in there and see what we're done there?
Those schools, elementary schools ran, used to say that they were roughly, 25% air conditioning. It's even less than that. 25% air conditioning with all the splits. It's even less than that because that's why the kids were back, because they got sent to the office with the air conditioning. That's what I used to do.
And look at you now.
Yeah, blame the hot in the classroom for being bad.
The libraries, because of the books and that, and computer lab. Sometimes the gymnasiums were all-purpose rooms, like Osborne has air conditioning in the cafeteria. That's where the RTMs used to be.
Yeah. So is it going to be similar to like the Mill Hill and Holland Hill and Riverfield projects that put in AC in all the rooms? Is that what we're looking to accomplish?
Similar to that. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So Rodney's right. That's a lot of ductwork. A lot.
It's a lot of ductwork, ceiling work.
Well, you're dropping a lot of, and the other thing is, these are sprinkler buildings, and as we learned with Mill Hill,
So we have to
Guess
redo them
what?
all.
it's a perfectly fine sprinkler system. Guess what? It's in the way when we start adding, and you're redoing. What did we end up redoing? We ended up redoing
Redoing the
60% of
the sprinklers. So we laid in a lot of ductwork.
Do we have a factor percentage-wise to guesstimate on that when we're coming into these buildings?
4,000.
We're in a building, we've been in these other buildings, because we know most of them were constructed very similar, and then that means that probably when they put in things like sprinklers, a lot of that is just similar. So if the building's got 60%, that's probably gonna be what you find on the next one.
Yeah, but I mean, you can
Right.
use it, it doesn't help so much with the existing conditions like the sprinkler stuff.
Yeah, well, it can, but
And just
you have to go in
for
there and map it all out.
And then the asbestos removal, because we know where
Take all
it
the
is.
ceilings down.
We have an asbestos problem, and we know where it is, and they're gonna have to hit it.
Yeah, just for example, like this is North Stratfield, the only part that's air conditioned is the media center here.
Yep.
So, and the blue is the existing split systems which we're replacing, so basically we're adding air conditioning, all the yellow and all the blue.
That's a lot.
And that's that's been pretty typical of your elementary schools anyways.
Yeah.
It's like
Well, that's
the
what I'm-
media center in a few select areas.
Yeah, exactly.
Classrooms.
This is Osborne Hill, there's a little bit more, forget that, that's temporary building up back. There's a little bit more of the core here, air conditioned with the tan there, but we're still gonna be doing both wings of all the classrooms.
Osborne Hill is probably the most comparable to Holland Hill, Mill Hill. It's, Osborne Hill's
It's actually the closest
Yeah,
to
the layout.
the layout of
straight
Holland
to
Hill.
map.
It's straight. It's straight. Yeah.
It's a cruciform, it has its
I know, I meant
They
like-
have a temporary, they have a trailer in the back, Osborne Hill?
it has an annex, it's steel and,
Yeah.
it's permanent construction.
Sherman.
Yeah, before I went there, I thought it was a trailer, but it's brick and steel and everything,
So they call it temporary hill, huh?
I saw the best description when I was there, and they called it permanent modular.
Yeah, it's like a 50-year.
Yeah.
Temporarily permanent.
Huh.
And, yeah, I worked on Holland Hill School, so I'm really familiar with that one.
Okay. A lot of duck, a lot of
and-
disruptions.
And then and then we have to challenge, we'll get to, here again, when the DTC reports were done. It was before all the inflation. It was before,
Oh, there, before COVID? Really?
just after COVID.
Okay.
So we didn't have that.
There's
We
not-
didn't have-
Yeah, we ordered that ahead of time.
So,
Yeah.
we might be having some challenges.
So where are you tracking what the knowns for budget or guesstimates, at this point? Where are you, across the whole pool of funds? Has that begun, like a master spreadsheet or series?
Are you talking about the waterfall?
No,
I'm talking about
For the project.
for the project.
committee's amount of
Once we
money
get on board, we're gonna put
That's
the
why you're
numbers
hiring
in our
a
budget.
We're gonna start, because
Yep.
getting that, even in a really rough form across.
We'll be very,
Everything.
very detailed form. You'll say,
No,
yeah.
but yeah, no, I know it'll go to a very, very
Yep.
detailed form. I'm talking right now, do we have, like, I don't think.
We don't have
when
a
we talk
spreadsheet.
vestibules and all the other things that we've talked about, I think we are realistically probably over the allotment
Yeah.
anyways, right? Especially without, now what you mentioned about, when the stuff was done
We might have to escalate
pre-COVID.
this.
Yeah, and so
Take a
I think
look
we
at
need
it.
to just
Get a high level.
Yeah. Yeah, just kind of go ballpark where we're at.
Right, and-
coming from the other side of it, the earlier that the heads up starts, start to fly, even if you're 6 months from coming and asking for a number that's even bigger than that, the earlier, like Tom would come to us when he was chair.
That's always
and
better to
West,
give it a heads
he'd
up.
come in and he'd go, hey,
Here's a philosophical problem.
Dave Hyde or whatever at the time, hey, we went out to coffee and give me a heads up.
Yep.
That project, we're looking at, around 1.5.
Sure.
We would immediately, it's sticking our head 2.5, and it might not come to us for 4 or 5 months, but when it did, it wasn't.
It was like a big surprise.
Right. So those things, I think.
These projects are funded on conceptual design.
Yeah.
What the town used to do was get the schematic design before they funded the project. What Holland Hill, what Riverfield was probably the most perfect example. They got really all the way through DD, and they might have even been 50% to construction to doc.
Until the gym came on.
And that's when they ended up getting the funding, remember?
Yeah.
All right, well,
That's where you really run out.
let's make sure we use the state money first and as best as we can without going over. In my head, that's how I want to think. We want to see where we can get with what we have.
Yeah.
How much state money do we have?
It's roughly 20 25%, we got across the 4 projects, we got $6.2 million.
Per project.
It's reimbursement, not per project.
No,
total.
Okay.
6.2 million, but it's reimbursement. You still have.
So you still have the cash outlay.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the cash outlay. What I'm worried is that we have the 6.2 and it's gonna come in at,
That's,
7.4, whatever.
that's with,
But also that we might actually know today that there's a good shot it's going to.
Well,
that's with,
I think you.
The vestibule?
no, that's
That's
without
what
the
I'm
vestibule.
without the vestibule. These are with the
Yeah,
three
we got a
schools.
lot, you got,
Yeah.
so just to clarify, there are 7 pots of money.
Okay.
There's 1 pot of money for Fitz House AC, the one I just told you, it's 1.1 million, but we already spent design money and we're just a little bit over. 1 for each of the schools at AC, 1 for each of the schools at vestibules. The grants are for the 4 AC projects that we got in hand. We haven't designed, we've funded the vestibules, but we haven't designed them yet. Jesse owes you guys a ad service proposal for doing vestibules, because that wasn't in his original contract, because they weren't funded when we hired DLN.
Total funding is 6.2 million.
That's reimbursement
That's
from the
reimbursement.
HVAC grants.
Okay.
The
So-
total project is that you have 20, the HVAC projects were roughly $23 million worth of funding. Add the vestibules, you're up to about $25 million total. All right. So we'll get those numbers over to Chuck and Mark. They'll start your spreadsheets.
And that's at those are all 100% reimbursed?
That could be.
No, those are still at 1%.
Still really close.
Fairfield, we're a rich town where we receive net for construction projects between 20 and 25%, depending on how many eligible LRDs there are.
Okay. Can you break all that down more?
Yes.
Yeah, once
Just
we
the
get all
grant.
those numbers, we'll
They're
You'll
gonna
handle that.
digest it, and they're good at.
Because it would be great to see the grant sheet and outlays and some of that broken out. Again,
But at a high
high level. I'm
Yep.
not, this isn't
Yep.
3 weeks from now in detail.
Yeah.
I know we're gonna get to that.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to wrap around that
order magnitude.
really early
Like
on.
that,
And then
email I
watching
gave you,
pieces
you
fall
fill that
into
out.
place. Because the other complication and you look at the 2 different schools, we may blow it on one and not on another, but if we can't cross buckets of money, then we need to figure that out
Right.
too.
right, I mean, if you're saying, gee whiz, we really knocked it out of the park in North Stratfield, and we're $1 million low, but Osborne really needs it, or vice versa. That's a
You can't,
Board of Finance transfer that they'll want to know.
not between their grants.
Not, the grants,
The
they're all
grants gonna do
separate,
the grant
separate.
pay too. This is gonna be,
But
we
we cross,
cross that bridge when we get to it, but we'll still have to procedurally get ready to deal with that internally and within the town, yeah.
All right. Any,
If you guys talked with the building official, fire marshal, all you had any initial conversations there? The only reason I brought it up is, if you remember, it's Holland Hill, in more so Holland Hill, I think Riverfield, that those what I'm concerned is we're gonna open up these ceilings and those top of wall conditions. What happened is they weren't snow tight.
that's right.
It was a hitting condition that we ran into at Riverfield, and we spent a lot of extra money.
well, Riverfield was
Yep.
It was a guinea pig for going through these, for sure.
well, that was interesting because it had that perforated pan, if you remember.
Yep.
Ceiling pan, it used to, the hard construction was a interlocking metal pan ceiling that was directly to the bottom of the bottom cord of the bar joist, and it was a supply plug at one point when it was originally built. So you got this perforated ceiling deck, and the fire marshal's going, well, smoke could go through the hole.
Yeah.
Oh, and he was absolutely right.
same in Holland. What I get concerned about is we're thinking
So that
ductwork,
turned into a
real
real-
ceilings down, and then we get these
Yeah.
top of walls. So you guys just don't, you have to have your architects look at top of wall condition, because they're gonna hit us for that, and then that's gonna be an unforeseen. That's just lessons learned from Holland.
Some of
So-
this we can do some
Any-
exploratory work on, at least. or-
Yeah, if you guys ever go back, Jesse, field visit, just pop a couple ceiling tile and go, hey, do we have that condition or not? We don't have to do a lot of it, just,
And we generally, again, because these buildings were
they're right, 60s generation.
Same era, same.
Yeah,
We
So
know what to look.
that's.
You
a-
know
that's a
where,
risk.
you know where everything is.
I believe, but good point, I believe that we solved that problem at the top, the corridor smoke tightness was solved in 2012 addition renovation at Fairfield Woods.
Okay.
Osborne and North Stratfield, Osborne had a major building construction project in '96 when it was converted from the old Board of Education back into a school.
Yeah.
And sprinklers were added and all that, so I'm really hoping we got smoke-tight corridors
Hopefully.
with that one. And North Stratfield was also late '90s renovation.
It's something we should talk to the
Yep.
building fire marshal ahead of time, take a look and go, what are you guys going to expect here? Because they're gonna come last minute, and they always do, and we're like, the officials requesting it, and they're like, why didn't we look at that before? So,
All right.
really conversation would be good there.
Anything else you wanna update us on? Are you still going? You're good?
No, I just wanted to kind of go over the scope. And,
Okay.
Fairfield Woods, we're doing approximately a third of the building, adding air conditioning.
Okay.
It's a whole mishmash of stuff that's not air conditioned there. There's an auxiliary gym that was constructed 12
Right.
years ago with no air conditioning, so that's one. There's a tech area over here. There's an old gym, which is separated into two pieces, it's not air conditioned.
Let's just-
There, and then classroom wings.
We-
Like the 50s classroom wing, which is a challenge.
We know the deadline. Well, I just want to caution, we don't want any disruption for students during this time. So, that's the key thing moving forward. We got to think it's for the kids. I don't want disruption for these kids for anything. We don't want guys walking in and out of the building. Like everyone else, they've been through enough the last few years, so they should have a normal school life as much as they can is my thing, and that's my concern. But
And I can coordinate a little bit more with Chuck, but I'm not convinced all this HVAC inside can be done in one summer. It's an awful lot of work to do in 2 months for the ductwork.
Well, that's what we get the PMs coming on board for.
No,
it has to be done.
Exactly.
the mentality is,
It's not my
has
area of
to be done.
expertise. I'm just,
I hear what you're
I'm
saying.
worried about it, I guess.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
And you're not the only one.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, we all are, but we all have to look at December 24th as the deadline.
And
Right.
that's, and the deal is, and it's also, this is one to talk to the state delegation about. If you read the, I'll get you the statute. What it says is, the work will be, if you get a grant under this program, the work will be done at the end of the calendar year following the year the grant was given.
Right.
It doesn't say 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. So whenever they get to it in 1 year, you gotta finish by the end of the next year. There's a lot that still goes on with that. You know what? It's a change to a statute. Let's get the statute changed. Or get it changed for our project, which is not unheard of. There's special legislation issued every year for school projects.
Well,
And it says the commissioner has, upon extenuating circumstances, blah, 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 the commissioner shall have the authority to extend the timeline.
once we get a CM on board and we work with BL and Colliers, I think we can get a schedule, a realistic,
Right, we got something
timeline
to talk.
Correct.
that we can give to you can give to the delegation saying, it ain't gonna happen. This is the realistic schedule from our professionals.
Well, we started knocking on the door of,
Yeah, that's
the
great.
superintendent wrote to the commissioner, she's been involved with, coming from Bridgeport. So extremely large projects. So, we have relationships there. He wrote to the commissioner. And, at the, talking to the delegation, talking to Jim Leeper, there was a press conference when the governor, lieutenant governor came down, just to say, hey, Fairfield got a lot of money, grants from us, or will be getting a lot of money.
Well, I mean, but having that realistic timeline by our professionals will I believe, will go a long way in pushing them to the.
Yes, we got to make the wheels start squeaking now.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I'm with Jesse. I don't see how this gets done.
No, I don't either.
To be honest.
It's one of those things, we had the good fortune of winning this. We also had the problem of winning it. I did not expect that we were going to win these three projects.
Really?
On the grant.
You're not the only district dealing. It's all across the state.
Yeah, I thought the Fairfield Ward one was, I was literally ready to bid Fairfield Ward when the grant program came out. And when I'm applying for all of these, I'm like, this pile of paper that's sitting on my desk. I said, this is the one that'll give me a grant on. I didn't think that I wrote them all that well.
Surprised
yourself. I surprised myself. Yeah.
Any other new business from anyone on the committee? Anyone else? Anyone from the peanut gallery here? Anyone on the phone have any comments or any questions or?
No, also on my end, Jason. Yeah, it's Brian from Gilbane.
Great. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right. At this time, make a motion for adjournment.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Have a good weekend. Happy Father's Day.